Welcome to the Paddle and Portage Podcast. I'm celebrating. I can't believe I'm even acknowledging it. The ice breaking up and the rivers are starting to move.
Sure is an exciting time out there in the outdoors. Open water, moving water. It's a time of a lot of energy.
It does stuff for people that I haven't quite tapped into in a way that you have, in terms of like, I want to get in that moving water. I'm drawn to it. Kind of freaks me out. And it did before the Timberance River thing, by the way, for anybody wondering if there's a correlation there. Like, I don't generally like to move very fast.
Right.
From a snowmobile to downhill skiing, like that type of stuff kind of makes me nervous, basically. And so I think that's a similar reaction I have to whitewater and really fast water. But you have had some experience with it. You're just much better at it, for one thing.
Well, I think we have a similar reaction to it. I actually find whitewater, fast water, pretty scary. And that's what I love about it. And that's what's taken me back to the Wolf River this spring for what my pal Sandra affectionately calls canoe camp. We're going to be doing swiftwater canoeing again this year, just like last year.
Yeah, that's over in Wisconsin, and you wrote a beautiful piece for Paddle and Portage about it last year, and did a lot of video work and some drone stuff. Those photos from the Wolf are like still some of our best file photos that we drop in occasionally.
Well, the good news for you, Freddie, and everybody listening is that you can go to paddleandportage.com and see all those pictures moving in video to check out where this episode is taking us today, which is back to that experience on the Wolf River.
Hi, my name is Sandra Newberry. I'm the founder of the Northwoods Outdoor Center. It's a school that we used to say was a whitewater kayaking school, and lately we're just thinking about it being a school for whitewater. We named it the Outdoor Center because we thought we might want to add things, and we've been adding a lot of things. Lately we've been adding canoeing and swiftwater rescue.
My name's Jordan Taylor. I've been teaching canoeing and training rescue instructors here on the Wolf River. We're just upriver of the Menominee Reservation. I've been teaching paddling for over 30 years, and I don't love it any less as time goes on.
We're gonna swing left. Give me a draw, and we're gonna paddle hard through that hydraulic. Nice! Woo! Okay, we're going wide here. We're going left.
That is the sound of me and my paddle partner, Ben Berthium, sending the drop and navigating the boulder garden that is Boy Scout Rapid at low flow. This Class 2 Rapid has been our training ground for the day as we move through our whitewater canoe course. Here's Ben describing how we ended up here together.
I was already signed up for a rescue course with Jordan, and I went to the Northwoods Outdoor Center's booth at Canoecopia to just talk to Sandra and kind of just chit-chat about the course. And then you were there, and we were talking about this canoe course, and it wasn't going to run. It had no people signed up, and it was just a few months out from needing to go. You actually said, hey, man, I'll go if you go. And we didn't know each other at this point, but I was like, M seems pretty cool. I think I'd go paddle with him. So we were the first people to sign up, and now there's like 8 or so folks here. And
There's a lot of people that experience whitewater as being really intimidating. And so the way that I wanted to teach was not about, are you the biggest, baddest boater in the world? But can you make somebody else feel good and supported and help them grow?
yeah, so last summer of 23, my paddling partner Isaac Dana and I paddled from Moose Lake in Ely to Churchill, Manitoba on Hudson Bay. We went by the way of the Bloodvein, Nelson, and Churchill rivers. And our presentation was about the lessons we learned on the way, because we're both outdoor educators and we use those kind of adventure experiences to teach people lessons they can take back home. And we sort of got taken along on a similar journey and learned quite a bit about ourselves. You learn so much in courses like this, and I'd done some experimentation on my own. Isaac and I did. So a lot of what we learned was just from YouTube videos and practice and doing things wrong. Something cool about taking courses with someone like Jordan is you start from the ground up, and you can move really quickly and have confidence that you're learning things in a way that they're going to be implementable in real life on the river. So I can't recommend it enough, actually.
Woo! That was some dicey runs, everybody. Nice job, man. Great communication.
Thanks.
I mean, for me as a boater, my blood pressure drops as soon as my boat is floating. So whatever the logistics and organization have been, whatever grind I've been through, trying to market a course, trying to get enough people to enroll, making sure everyone signed their waiver, like all of that kind of melts away as soon as my boat's floating. So that's what's true for me as a paddler, but also as an instructor. It's like, right, this is what we're here to do. And specifically, there's not research, but there are enough anecdotes to start pointing towards data that moving water is a source of healing. Humans have known this for thousands of years. I think floating and navigating in moving water requires a kind of focus in the moment that you can spend years trying to achieve meditating. I'm still working on that one. And so for me, no matter what might be spinning in my head or out of control in the rest of my life, there's a kind of in control, out of control feel to moving water, something bigger than me moving under me that I'm interacting with, that just like shrinks my focus down to like right here, right now, at least for a few moments a day on the river. Watching other people learn that and explore that is this whole other layer of joy that's just like, it feels like somewhat mine, and to be adjacent to that for other people is this like, just this vibe that I don't get enough of, even though I'm doing it all the time.
My name is Todd Provo. I was a tandem paddler back years ago. Did some whitewater, and now I decided to buy a solo boat, and I need to learn how to paddle it correctly. Thought I could just jump in it and go, but I learned the hard way that it needs a lot of technique, and there's a lot to it to learn. So I decided to sign up for this course. I saw it online, came across it online, and it looked like a really good course that teaches you from beginning through, from a very beginning, early on stages. I personally feel that Jordan is very good. I was a little nervous coming into this, being green at my paddling skills, but with the progression that we went through, it just worked out. It just played out perfect. And to start out on the pond, and then to move to slower moving current, and slowly move into faster current, it was just great.
All of my official paddling credentials come from the American Canoe Association. I'm a kayak instructor, trainer, educator, which means I train instructor trainers, people that certify other instructors, and I also train instructors. And when I have time in between all those things, I really like to teach kayaking to people who've never tried it before as well. Within canoeing, I'm currently a canoe instructor trainer, but I've just applied to be able to train other trainers. I'm a swiftwater rescue instructor trainer. I also teach in all aspects of the Whitewater program for the National Outdoor Leadership School. I'm a wilderness first responder.
Support for this episode of the podcast comes from Borderland Lodge, inviting listeners to unwind, explore, and create lasting memories against the backdrop of the Boundary Waters. They're offering pet-friendly cabins, lakeside lodge rooms, and cozy weekend dining along the shores of Gunflint Lake. You can find more about Borderland at their website, borderlandlodge.com. Also, check out their Instagram page for some of the incredible Italian pasta meals that Steph is making up at Borderland. Oh my goodness. Check it out, Borderland Lodge on Instagram and Facebook, or their website, borderlandlodge.com. And this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Tuscarora Lodge and Canoe Outfitters, located on Round Lake. Tuscarora is a full-service Boundary Waters outfitter, serving Gunflint Trail entry points. They're now booking 2025 canoe trips and cabins. Check them out online at TuscaroraCanoe.com or on their Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook pages at Tuscarora Canoe.
Most summers, my parents were in graduate school when I was growing up, and then later professors, and so summer was a time to travel. We'd go to Colorado. Both my dad and his dad, my granddad, liked fly fishing a lot. I found that not profoundly boring, but certainly not interesting. I thought it would be way more fun to be the fish, and that is where I believe I fell in love with moving water. There were a couple canoe trips as a kid, most summers, some sort of day trip on the Iowa River. I grew up in Iowa City. And then a Boundary Waters trip. I would have been like 8, 9 maybe. And there was one campsite where there was a creek flowing into the lake, and my friend and I spent what in my memory feels like 2 hours with each of us with our own canoe tied to shore, trying to paddle as far up as the rope would let us, and then letting the current take us down, like over and over and over.
This story covers a lot of ground. From Grand Marais, Minnesota, to the rivers of Utah, to Madison, Wisconsin, and then to the banks of the Wolf River in rural northeastern Wisconsin. It's a story about paddling and the network of paddlers that pull us together to learn and grow. For me, the story begins in 2020, toward the end of the summer. The COVID-19 pandemic had shut down international border travel in the United States. In my small town of Grand Marais, I got a call from a friend who was working for NOLS, the National Outdoor Leadership School. NOLS has a river base in Vernal, Utah, where they launch paddling programs on rivers like the Green and San Juan. Since the borders were closed, the base was short-staffed and quickly recruiting canoe instructors for trips the following spring. That phone call landed me on the Green River the following November with a group of NOLS instructor recruits. With little whitewater experience compared to countless hours canoeing flat water, I found myself in Desolation Canyon with a new friend and mentor named Jordan Taylor. Jordan simultaneously coached me in canoeing class 2 and 3 whitewater while preparing me to teach my own future students. By the time the trip ended, I gained a wealth of experience paddling whitewater and a new friend in Jordan. But Jordan's evolution as a paddling instructor is a long one that started in high school.
As a 17-year-old in 93, I got a job as a camp counselor in a program that included lots of activities, but also whitewater canoeing around Harper's Ferry, the Potomac and Shenandoah rivers. And I had about a half a day of training before then, being asked to take groups of kids on 2-night trips with external frame packs clipped to the gunnels and thwarts of canoes with no flotation. And yeah, I sort of then was like tasked with leading trips with like that amount of training, and I felt so cool. And there were more experienced co-counselors where I was like, do you want to be the one doing this? And they're like, no, you say it all really well, like you should just go for it. So the instructor and me essentially developing almost only a half step behind the paddler in me. I was a counselor at that camp for 3 years, and then there were 2 different years where I was involved with a different camp within the same program that was more expedition based. Yeah, that also got involved in other programs. My college has a wilderness program that includes whitewater paddling some of the time. It was very easy for me to like identify in that way and find pretty instant community kind of wherever I went. As I was leaving college, had been doing some paid summer work camp counselor type stuff and some low-paid intern type stuff with Outward Bound up in Minnesota and Manitoba. And so landed in Madison. The paid paddling work that started in that year, I taught a few classes at Rutabaga with their outdoor program, which is in Madison. And I had done some paid work with Outward Bound. And then in 96, while I was still in college, I'd taken a training, both a swiftwater rescue training and how to kayak class at a program that is still really excellent in Ontario. Then by 99, took my second class there, at the end of which I was like, this was even better than the first time I came here. Are you hiring? So the owner and I talked for 2 minutes, and the owner looked at my instructor and was like, well, does he have what it takes? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, how do I apply? And my instructor was like, you just did.
Almost 50 years ago, a group of friends met at a diner and began to organize a movement. They formed a group dedicated to preserving the pristine waters and forests of northeastern Minnesota. Through grassroots organizing, they helped pass the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness Act, which protected the boundary waters for future generations. Today, that organization, Friends of the Boundary Waters, continues its work to protect, preserve, and restore this cherished wilderness. Whether it's through fighting toxic mining proposals at the edge of the boundary waters, or introducing the next generation to the wonders of the BWCA, our strength is in our members. It is in you. To learn more and find out how you can join this community today, please visit www.friends-bwca.org.
While in Wisconsin, Jordan was always looking for people to paddle with. Some of these experiences taught him valuable, real-world lessons that a class just couldn't cover.
I won't use any names, but there was one person who I met up with to go paddling, and it was like 33 degrees and like freezing rain. He was a little bit late. There were no cell phones, so I was just sort of like waiting there in the freezing rain, wondering if I could like find a really mild place to maybe paddle alone if he didn't show, and he finally showed up. Like, I'm really excited to go, but like I don't have a lot of time. I need to get back to work by evening. And are you excited? And he was like, yeah, very excited. He's came here from Poland, so all of that would have been in a Polish accent. Cool. Well, yeah. Like, are you rested? Are you ready to go? Do you need anything? It's like, I came straight from the club. I was dancing and drinking vodka all night, but don't worry, I ate 2 packs of hot dog buns on the way up here. That should absorb all the vodka. And so in a way, that's like such a perfect, like, I want this so bad that I'm willing to be like, cool, well, I still want to paddle, so here we go.
After college and an apprenticeship in ceramics, Jordan was working hard to build a career in his field of study as a potter. Married and with a kid on the way, he still paddled as much as he could.
My partner and I were expecting and went out on a local run, and there was a near miss where someone that had just sort of showed up to the put-in and asked if they could paddle with us, my friend and I was a little grumpy about it. He was really welcoming to the person. I was like, all right, whatever. And this person just made a few sort of strange choices that had them flip upside down and get pushed up against a tree that was in the water and not be able to, like, they had to use everything they had to keep their head above water, and were calling for help. And I scooted to one shore and was able to get to the person quickly. My friend made a series of choices that I have a lot of compassion for that placed him like out of reach to actually be helpful. I got this person off of the strainer and we kept paddling, but got home and like threw up a bunch in the toilet because it was just the first time that I'd actually faced mortality rather than like nervousness or like something might happen. It was like, wow, no, like something really could have happened. And what's more, this friend who had been like doing some probable first descents of like weird little creeks at flood stage for those creeks, like we were running some stuff that very few people had run, or maybe even nobody had run in north central Pennsylvania. And it was like, oh, like he actually reacted badly or like in an untrained way when this situation got very urgent. So I've been making these decisions all along where like this person actually didn't have rescue training and didn't make good decisions. And that could have been me on the strainer. And, you know, then I wouldn't have met my kid. Combined with that experience before she was born, it was just sort of like, wow, like I've been thinking about this all wrong.
After a 9-year hiatus, Jordan found his way back to the paddling school in Ontario, where he had originally visited as a student. Now as an instructor, he excelled and worked his way up to head instructor. As he was learning how to balance his passion for paddling with his career as an artist, it was a healthy outlet from other life stressors and gave him a sense of community he was craving. Unexpectedly, though, Jordan's wife started experiencing symptoms of a chronic illness. The stress of managing home life, seasonal instruction, and his art career started to build. Then something even more unexpected happened.
With about 2 weeks left in my time in that summer, I had an interaction with someone I was managing. I will describe it in vague terms as sexual assault, and basically stopped sleeping during those last 2 weeks. I had several other off interactions with people that I was managing based on my response to that trauma being to have my filters like blown off, and like knowing that they were blown off and just like trying desperately to hold in on the inside the things that were meant to be on the inside and not fully succeeding. And then leaving completely, pardon the term, it's a really outdated term, but like profoundly shell-shocked, not understanding what had happened, really not having words for what had happened until I started a high school teaching job in the fall of 2016, volunteered to be one of the faculty to go to a summit on assault and consent in independent schools, and just knocked almost backwards off my chair looking at the list of symptoms that high school students might exhibit if they'd experienced sexual mistreatment or assault from a peer. And I was like, whoa, that is my list. Oh, look, and there is a definition of what constitutes assault. And it's like, that is what I experienced.
This time in Jordan's life was complicated and painful. Leaving the paddling school, coping with both the stress of his family life and the chaos of his assault, took its toll.
The part of what I remember about that time is this, like, even if I do nothing else, like I'm going to keep going. And some of that was like needing to prove to myself that I had that strength, needing to prove to my assailant that I had that strength, even though we were not in contact and remain not in contact. Needing to prove to my former employer that I could remain a professional in this industry. And in a much darker way, it was like a way of not looking the things that I wasn't ready to look in the face. Like it was a way to look at something else, was to like focus on how to get through.
Eventually, Jordan sought therapy to try and make sense of what happened and what was still happening inside himself.
I spent a lot of time post-summer of 2015 paddling alone, often in really cold conditions, ice building up on my boat. I would go out early in the morning. On a Saturday morning, I wanted to be back in time for when my daughter woke up and wanted pancakes. So I'd drive before first light down to the river. It might be 28 degrees when I put on. I would be putting on by myself. For everyone listening, I don't advocate. And just paddle until I got cold enough to concern me, or until I was like, oh, if I want to be home by 9 when Greta usually wakes up on a Saturday, I need to head back to my car now. And I've come to learn later that cold water immersion is anti-inflammatory and antidepressant. I've come to learn that organizations like Team River Runner, who work with vets with multiple kinds of impacts from their experience in combat, including post-traumatic stress issues, have at least anecdotal evidence, if not data-driven evidence, that particular kind of focus that Whitewater demands of us has a a therapeutic effect, even if in just relief from intrusive imagery or relief from reliving traumatic events. Looking back, I can see myself both reliving events while paddling, because paddling reminded me of my experiences every time I picked up the paddle for a few years, and relieving it at the same time.
Jordan was also examining the industry he worked in and noticing the subtle ways that elements of that world weren't working for him anymore.
Whitewater is a helmeted sport, and like a lot of other helmeted sports in our culture, there's a certain acceptance, tolerance of a particular flavor of misbehavior. And the most harmful parts of that for me were acute assault, but there was also like a baseline of like homoeroticism as a source of entertainment that was like, it's a company full of raft guides. Like, what are you going to do? As an athlete, my whole life, I'd essentially been taught to accept some level of that in exchange for having access to the athleticism that I found joy in. And for a lot of years, that was a price I was willing to pay until this acute experience, at which point it was like, that is too steep a price for anyone to pay. There was just this moment of like, but I have to hang on to myself as a boater and as a instructor, to lose that too in this moment of acute loss of autonomy around my body, rejection by the community that had felt like solace from the other acute and prolonged source of stress, which was Mariana's illness. I couldn't afford to lose anything else. And so in 2016, I took a job in the summer before I started the high school teaching job with North Carolina Outward Bound School, and took my NOLS instructor course. Landing at a place like NOLS at that time in the river program, there were a few key people who were just profoundly into the idea that vulnerability is the most important leadership skill, and that we even joked like crying is a leadership skill, and there's ways that that's a joke and serious at the same time. And so ultimately it was like landing at NOLS and realizing that there could be a strategy that a whole team of instructors deploys in order to intentionally build the kind of transformative experiences I'd happened to land in my experience of paddling community and my experience of the athleticism of the sport. Yeah, the idea that that could be intentionally built, and that there were specific skills that I could develop and a specific curriculum for it, was breathtaking, especially given what I'd experienced. And so I found a few pockets with really just a few relationships in that program where I could start to be open about everything I'd experienced and be accepting, and then be helped to understand that the parts of my whole story could become like keys to unlock transformative experience for participants of mine. And watching that work over and over made me realize like, oh, like I may have more to offer this curriculum even than this curriculum initially had to offer me. The combination of those things, that like therapeutic effect from my own relationship to paddling as an athlete, as someone who's experienced trauma, and then my relationship to education around those activities, both for the joy of them and as a way to build community, and then ultimately to build spaces, whether through art or through paddling, in which people can experience transformation. That all of that has been unlocked by this experience of paddling, of teaching paddling, of teaching leadership as the building of community and the building of relationships through vulnerability. That's where I've landed.
This is the moment in Jordan's story where I entered his world of instruction. The experience at the NOLS base and on the water in Green River's Desolation Canyon left me profoundly impacted. It wasn't just Jordan. But the community of paddling instructors he's referencing invited a level of vulnerability on and off the water that took both my paddling and my life's work to the next level. I didn't know it at the time, but Jordan was exploring a way to take this type of instruction to the larger paddling community, beyond Knowles.
The summer of 2020, when a lot of us were wondering what we were going to do with our time while we waited to see where the first wave of the pandemic played out, a friend who was doing a side hustle as a web designer and as a black woman paddle sport athlete was like, even just as an exercise, why don't you make a website for the paddling company that you would most want to work for? So I did, and at one point paid her for her time to help me understand my relationship to identity-based work and identity-based consulting. That's Drea Woods, whose outdoor organization is Black to Nature. Hi, Drea, if you hear this. And so I built that website, and then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I have a company. And that is my company. My company was born out of that challenge or that task that she put before me. So here we are.
That website and Jordan's move to build a program based on this emerging model is what brought him to the Wolf River in Wisconsin. It's why Sandra, the owner of the Northwoods Outdoor School, continues to bring him back year after year. It's why he continues to travel the country, providing this type of learning experience to paddlers from all walks of life. As Jordan and I sat across from each other near the banks of the river, I asked him, what makes his approach so special?
For a while, I desperately wanted people to be convinced that the worldview that I had was a good one for them to have. And pretty quickly that gets slippery. That gets into are you on the team or are you not on the team? And so where I've landed that I think is possibly unique to what I have to offer is this idea that regardless of your worldview, there are skills that you can practice and develop that will make room for other worldviews, as well as a variety of needs as learners, as well as a variety of needs as people learning paddlers. So that to come down to the fact that hey, try this out, get better at it. It's a people skill. This skill of being able to create spaces for lots of kinds of people to experience enough of a sense of belonging to try new things in a way that might make them feel silly if they're trying it in front of people they just met for the first time yesterday. And that's where what I'm offering through paddle sports is what I believe could be in almost anything. Paddle sports magnifies it because we experience this focus of something bigger than us moving under us and splashing over us, and that physical sensation of something bigger than us moving our bodies is profound. It will always feel profound, even if it's just the little lurch in your stomach when the plane takes off. That there's always something there, and that magnifies this experience of shared vulnerability, shared community. So I say vulnerability and someone might think, oh, he wants to stand around and talk about feelings instead of paddling. And mostly I just mean the vulnerability of being willing to try something new or a different way. And when I need to, I can say, oh, I'm just talking about try ferrying your kayak in a different way. But also when I need to, I can be try thinking about your race in a different way and how that might impact other people. So the skill is trying something new and finding places and people that you trust to witness you trying something new.
As my conversation with Jordan wrapped up, we talked about how much fun we had the day before, surfing a standing wave on the Class 3 rapid named Gilmore's Mistake. I noted that at the beginning of the course, I was pretty intimidated by the line, including the size of the waves and drop at the end. By the final day, however, I was hooting and hollering and laughing out loud between deep breaths as we upstream ferried in and out of the trough in what felt like a blend of focus, technique, and play. As he recalled his own memory of that early childhood experience floating up and down the creek in the Boundary Waters, we came right back to the understanding that the experience of play really is most important.
His childhood name was Tice, and so he was there, and he was doing the same thing. I think our parents came to tell us dinner was ready. I don't think either of us chose to stop, really. So there's some joy in experiencing it. Just the raw relationship between me and my blade and the shape of my boat and the river. But there's something about an invitation to come play that's even more powerful, and I don't think it takes a lot of imagination to picture how important that is to vulnerability in terms of sharing through words or physical or sexual intimacy. There is this, just this like spirit of play and then parallel play and then like collaborative play with frequent verbal and enthusiastic consent to keep playing that hard. And then this joy of something bigger than us moving through us with uncertain outcome.
Is it fair to say that Jordan's expertise, experience, knowledge has put him in like this top tier when we're talking with people like Bear Paulson about the future of paddling and who that next generation is? As we did our episode this year just recently about Cliff Jacobson and sort of who's going to pick up that torch of the next generation of paddler. And to me, based on this story and this episode, I think Jordan fits into that discussion.
Absolutely. And I think, as his story sort of illustrates, he has all the technical expertise, all the certifications, all the trainings. I mean, he knows that world in and out so much that he's the trainer who trains the trainers. But the thing that I think makes him about the future is all this human touch that he brings around building community, that and not just kayaking, but it doesn't matter. It can be kayaking, it can be canoeing, it can be whitewater rafting. And what inspires me most about his story is how he has made it his life work in the paddling community to create places that make good paddlers and that builds paddling community. So much so that I'm going to be joining Jordan on the Salmon River this summer. Idaho's Salmon River.
That's like the Sawtooth Mountains. No offense to the North Shore's Sawtooth, air quote mountains, like the Sawtooth Range in Idaho.
Indeed.
Wow.
Yep. Taking paddling to the next level out there in preparation for a trip down the Grand Canyon that starts the day after Christmas, December 26th.
This is crazy. Does Kelsey know about this Grand Canyon? Kelsey from the podcast?
I think I mentioned it to her, when we were talking about her Grand Canyon experience with her dad. So, yes. And I would invite you, Freddie, but we all now know clearly how you feel about fast-moving water. So, just like on the last episode where I sat at home while you were on SAG, you can sit at home while I'm in the Grand Canyon.
Well, so what's the link between the salmon and the Idaho trip and the Grand Canyon trip?
Well, they're both raft-supported trips. So there'll be kayakers and canoers, part of, people traveling down the river in kayaks and canoes as part of the expedition. But the raft supports the expedition with carrying the amount of gear that wouldn't otherwise be able to be brought along in those smaller vessels. So it's kind of, I did this on the Green River during my Knowles time in Desolation River, or Desolation Canyon, where the raft's kind of like these barges that move down the river while the small boats kind of play in the rapids and have these wild experiences while there's somebody at the oars. And the requirement, in my agreement with Jordan Taylor, is that I get some experience on the oars on the salmon, so that when we're in the Grand Canyon, I can take my oar shifts on the rafts.
I see. So it's almost like a qualifier when we talk about like sled dogs and stuff. Like this is the salmon's a qualifier for the Grand Canyon.
Absolutely. And just another excuse to go on an epic trip.
Wow. That's fantastic. This is going to be a great paddling season.
And I have to say that, like I said at the start of the episode, this type of big water scares me. Just like I talked about surfing that standing right wave with Jordan Taylor. Like, that stuff's intimidating to me. And if there's anybody I'm going to go confront my fear around big moving water with, it's Jordan Taylor.
Wow. Fantastic. Well, thanks for Jordan for sharing the story and all the people you got to meet and talk with there at the Wolf, and you'll be heading back there again, and then that's like a springboard to get you out west to the salmon. And of course, we got BWCA stuff to do before then.
I know. I'm actually going to be coming out of fishing opener trip with you and the boys, packing up the next day. I'm driving to the Wolf. Open water season, here we come, baby!
I like to sing, I love to dance, I play the fool if I got the chance, all around the campfire light, all around the campfire